open-minded abbot of Gethsemane, James Fox, had the intuition that the otherwise hidden Father Louis, Thomas Merton, had a gift that could be of use, and so he was encouraged unexpectedly to write. And write he did, and one of his volumes comes from the Gospel that we have here, entitled Bread in the Desert. The monastic life well lived is a desert, and one is empty. And so it is that a word from heaven feeds. In our society, we don't feel that hunger because we are already over full of words. So Advent is a time to seek something of that hunger, to make space. Even in our own soul, we can be filling ourselves with our own words. To be better if we dialogue with Jesus than with ourselves. Which brings me to the way that the Eastern Church handles it, the prayer of Jesus, repeated endlessly in the monastic life. And this is, as it happens, a feast of a saint that we have in common with them, John of Damascus. He is one of the great doctors of the East that we have with also our brethren in the East, because this is before the division. And he was somebody who unexpectedly found himself serving the Caliph. I understand that his father was also helping the highest notches of the Islamic bloc there, who had already taken over Damascus, and he succeeded, and he was the equivalent of Chancellor. Now, we're not quite sure whether it's historically accurate or not that he had his hand amputated, chopped off for treachery. But in the old rite, his feast is celebrated with the gospel of the withered hand for that reason. Whatever it may be, he was touched powerfully by grace, adopted to leave what could have been a brilliant career and go to monastic life in the Holy Land, in a monastery which is still standing actually, Mar Saba, the monastery founded by St. Sabas. Sabas is down south of Jerusalem, and it's there still, very austere, very simple, the same life as was lived over the centuries. So he was there, and there he actually was still useful, because even though he was hidden, he wrote, and he became, as I say, a doctor of the church. He wrote on the faith. He wrote also on certain things linked with it which were in danger of being messed up by confusion at the time. There was a strong reaction on the part of some against using icons and the like, and it was settled at the Council of 787 when it was maintained that it was actually an honouring of the Incarnation, to honour what represented the invisible in that sense. But they did in the East maintain one element which we didn't in the West. They only allowed two-dimensional ones. We allow three-dimensional ones. And also in the East they maintained a certain stylized icon. They're not realistic. They're suggesting the unsuggestible, whereas we have reality in ours quite often. But we know that it's pleasing to the Lord what we have, because, for instance, when it came again in the Reformation period and did damage to a lot of our churches, it was, for instance, told directly by our own great mystic Teresa of Avila that the Lord did not want that to be destroyed, because it was something which helped souls to love him in his humanity, and she had a great devotion to his humanity. So it's linked precisely with honouring the humanity, because we are body and soul. But I just want to quote one or two things from this great author, because they are actually a help to us in our time. He notes how all that we have is received, and that, by the way, is the correct attitude of the creature. We can have an attitude of owning, can't we? And the same person can either say thank you or isn't it awful before the same fact. Just cultivating the attitude of the creature who, wow, it's a free gift, everything. It's liberating. It was you, Lord, he says, who drew me forth from my father's loins. You formed me in my mother's womb. You brought me to the light of day, a naked boy, because the laws of our nature always obey your precepts. Now he goes on to indicate how he, in his own case, has received more. But it is something which we do well to ponder on, because this question of the attitude of the soul is something that we don't get right if we're honest. For instance, right now I know a person who every moment of her waking life is suffering terribly physically. For that person, just not to suffer for a moment would be utter bliss, and yet we have time to complain that something should be different. Now, little things can actually help us on that one. Take a scenario where something unexpected happens. We weren't prepared for it. It's taking away our apparent rights. So we start, therefore, to lose our peace and to protest against the order of things. It shouldn't be so. But if we are truly creatures living our truth, that would not happen. We would more easily say, I read your word in this, O provident God, and I listen to what your message in it is for me. It's a different way, and it's a freeing way. Just one last thing. When one is next to a person who is suffering a lot, one also sees what it is to be grateful for things we're not grateful for. One sees how if the soul automatically, continuously gives back to God in thanksgiving and praise as a reaction in prayer, it's much more glorifying for the Creator than the one who just functions, and as it were, thinks everything is due. It happens, unfortunately, very quickly. The child starts to complain. The child starts by thinking, wow, this is all new, and then he starts to complain. At the age of 2 and so on, they are already great nuisances. Well, it's the same with us. We never really grow up. Let's just ask for that grace to be truly poor in spirit, owning nothing, having no right at all, and genuinely dialoguing with the Lord in thanksgiving for every single thing that comes, but also being completely free, without preference, wholly indifference to any manifestation of the will of God. That also was taught to Teresa of Avila. It's the disposition of soul that gives greatest glory to him when there is no preference. The will is completely handed over.